The bells of Saint Evelyn tolled like a dirge over the valley that morning. Every note carried a chill, rolling down the misty hills of northern Castamar, through the pines, through the frost, through the hearts of those who stood before the great marble chapel. They said it was a wedding. But no one smiled. At the altar stood Duke Alejandro de Valmore, his dark eyes fixed forward, his jaw tight as a blade. Beside him, the bride, Isabella Montclair, daughter of a disgraced noble house, kept her gaze low. Her veil trembled as she breathed, her hands cold beneath the silk gloves. The vows were spoken, not from love but command. When the priest spoke of devotion, Alejandro's silence cut deeper than any oath. When he placed the ring upon her finger, his voice was steady, emotionless. And when the ceremony ended, he turned before the applause had even faded, offering her his arm only because duty demanded it. That night, the feast was grand, gold wine, laughter forced through gritted teeth. But the Duchess sat in silence, eyes on her untouched cup. Across the table, her new husband conversed with his captains and advisers, as though she were air. Only when the crowd thinned did he rise and approach her, his gaze shadowed by the flickering candlelight. "You will find," he said, voice low, "that I am not a cruel man, so long as you remember your purpose." "My purpose," she whispered. He leaned close enough that she felt the warmth of his breath. "To give me an heir. That is all I ask of you." Until then, his hand caught her chin, forcing her eyes up to his. "Your body is mine. Your heart, however, is no concern of mine." Her pulse stuttered. "And what if I have neither to give you?" For the briefest second, a flicker crossed his face, something like pain, quickly buried. "Then, Duchess," he said coldly, "you will find this castle colder than its walls." And so began her life at Valmore Keep, a fortress of beauty and silence, perched above the roaring sea. The servants watched her with pity. The courtiers whispered. The Duke worked from dawn till dusk in his war room, drawing lines on maps, issuing orders that echoed through the land. He never touched her save for duty's call. And yet, when he did, there was something unspoken beneath it, a tension that frightened her more than anger. Days turned to weeks. She learned his ways, the order of his desk, the quiet he demanded, the way he stared out to sea when he thought no one watched. She painted to fill the silence, her brush capturing the storm clouds over the cliffs, the waves battering stone, the face of a man who could not love. One evening he found her there, alone, painting his portrait without meaning to. His eyes flicked to the canvas. "You paint me as though I were haunted," he said. "Aren't you?" she whispered. His gaze lingered, not with fury, but with a strange, suffocating longing. That night, for the first time, he came to her chambers without demand. No order. No words. Just silence and the sound of rain on stone. And in that silence, something broke between them, a fragile thread neither had known was there. But in the morning, he was gone again. And by the door, she found a single note in his hand. Asterisk until the heir comes, you are mine. Nothing more. Asterisk. The seasons shifted. By spring, the fields of Castamar glowed gold, but Valmore Keep remained a place of shadows. Isabella's laughter, rare and soft, began to echo faintly through its halls, carried by her growing bond with the people. The Duke's servants adored her kindness. The stable hands taught her to ride. The head maid, old Dona Lucia, whispered that the Duchess had a soul of light meant for a world beyond stone. Yet every time she smiled, the Duke seemed to grow colder. He watched her from afar, during council meetings, during her walks in the courtyard, as though she were a reminder of something he did not deserve. Rumors spread through the court. They said the Duke had once loved another, a woman of low birth, executed for treason after the last rebellion. Her name was Sophia. Some whispered Isabella looked like her, though younger, softer. One night, when the sea winds howled, Isabella confronted him at last. "Do I remind you of her?" she asked, voice trembling. Alejandro turned slowly from the hearth, his expression unreadable. "Who told you that name?" "Everyone," she whispered. "The servants, the courtiers, the ghosts that haunt your silence." He took a long breath. Sophia was a mistake. "And what am I?" His voice hardened. "A duty." The word struck harder than a slap. She stepped closer, her anger breaking through years of restraint. "You think love is weakness, don't you? That desire is something to fear." "Desire destroyed this house once," he snapped. "It will not again." But her eyes burned. "Then you are already its ruin." He turned away, fists clenched, yet she saw it then, the tremor in his shoulders, the grief he hid like a wound. That night, she wept alone in her chamber. But when dawn came, she did not hide. She rode her horse down to the shore, wind tearing through her hair, salt stinging her lips. For the first time, she felt free. There she met Captain Matteo Ardanza, the Duke's most trusted soldier, young, loyal, and quietly devoted to her since the day she arrived. "You shouldn't be here alone, my lady," he said, steadying her horse. "Then stay with me," she replied. A dangerous warmth grew between them in the days that followed. Shared glances, lingering touches, the comfort of someone who saw her not as property but as person. And soon, word reached the Duke. Alejandro stormed into the courtyard, his cloak whipping behind him like a banner of war. "Captain Ardanza," he thundered, "I trusted you with my life, and you repay me by coveting my wife?" "My lord, leave this castle before sunset," the Duke growled. "If you value your head." When Matteo was gone, Isabella faced him, trembling but unyielding. "You have taken everything from me, my name, my freedom, now even friendship. Tell me, my lord, when will it be enough?" "When you give me my heir," he hissed. Tears burned her eyes. "And what then? Will I finally be free?" Alejandro stared at her, long, deep, tortured. "No," he whispered. "Then I will finally lose you." She froze, heart pounding. "What did you say?" But he turned away, leaving her with nothing but the echo of what he could not admit. That night, the castle shook with the storm outside. Lightning split the sky as the Duke rode to the cliffs, his old torment rising like ghosts. There in the rain, he cried for the first time in years. And when he returned, soaked, bloodied, exhausted, she was waiting for him. No words passed between them. Just the truth, silent, fierce, and forbidden. They were no longer master and duty. They were man and woman, wound and balm, sin and salvation. By dawn, she carried more than love within her. She carried the future of Valmore. When the Duke learned of her pregnancy, he fell to his knees in his study. No one saw. He had won wars, silenced rebellions, buried his heart beneath armor. But that moment, that single whisper of life, undid him completely. He visited her chamber quietly that night, standing by her bedside as she slept. Her hand rested over her belly, the faintest curve beneath the sheets. He reached out, almost touching, but stopped, afraid that to do so would shatter the fragile peace between them. Days passed, and word spread. The Duchess of Valmore would bear an heir. Bells rang across the valley once more, this time with joy. But peace never lasts. Matteo Ardanza returned, not as a soldier, but as a rebel. The king's men had turned against the Duke, accusing him of treason, of plotting independence. Matteo brought an army to Valmore's gates. The Duke's world crumbled overnight. "Take her away," Alejandro ordered his most trusted guard. "To the chapel by the cliffs. If I fall, she must live." But Isabella refused. "I will not run from this life, or from you." He looked at her then, truly looked, at the woman who had defied him, changed him, saved him. "You were never mine," he whispered. "Not even when I tried to make you so." Outside, fire lit the horizon. Steel clashed. Arrows screamed through the night. The Duke rode into battle, his banner torn, his heart burning with a single thought: protect her. At dawn, the gates of Valmore were red. Matteo fell by the Duke's blade, but Alejandro's victory came at a cost, a wound deep beneath his ribs. They found him in the courtyard, slumped against the stones, rain washing the blood from his hands. Isabella ran to him, dropping to her knees. "Don't you dare," she sobbed, clutching him. "Don't you dare leave me now." He smiled faintly, blood on his lips. "The heir, our child. You'll tell them I was not always cruel?" She shook her head, tears falling fast. "You were never cruel. Only broken." He brushed her cheek, voice fading. "Then maybe in them, I'll be whole again." And with that, the Duke of Valmore, ruthless, proud, and undone by love, breathed his last in her arms. Months later, the chapel bells tolled again, not for death this time, but for birth. A child's cry echoed through the stone halls of Valmore Keep. The Duchess, pale but smiling, whispered to her newborn, "You are your father's heir. But you are also his redemption." She walked the cliffs often after that, watching the sea crash against the rocks, where once her husband had stood in anguish. The wind carried his memory, fierce, unyielding, eternal. And though she ruled alone, Isabella knew she was never truly alone. For every storm that broke across Castamar, every bell that tolled in the distance, every wave that kissed the cliffs, all whispered the same vow that began it all. His until the heir, but forever in love.